How to execute like a maniac and send your profits through the roof. That's the topic of today's show. Now, today's episode is for those solopreneurs out there, or maybe you've got a small team and you are looking to get more done, right? You're tired of running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and sometimes you feel like you're spinning your wheels, right? Maybe you look around and you see some of your competitors looking like they're running circles around you. I can tell you what, at one point, this was me. And so I am really excited about today's show because I'm going to give you some very specific tools for you to start to make some serious traction in your business. But first, I've got a gift for you. If you have not been over to one of our sites, you got to go to nextlevelwholesaling.com, nextlevelwholesaling.com, and there you can download assessment. And it's going to rate you in the 4 core areas of your wholesaling business. It's going to fit right into what we're talking today. And I tell you what, I created this tool for me actually to score myself every single quarter. And it's going to rate you in marketing, acquisition, disposition, and really how you're keeping track of your money, right? The accounting. And at the end of the day, it's all about net profit, how much money you are putting in the bank. Man, that sounds nice. So head on over to nextlevelwholesaling.com. I have an awesome tool there for you. Going to take like a 10 or 15 minute quiz. It's going to spit out a score, and you're going to see exactly which area you need to tackle next. It's going to give you clarity and it's going to give you focus. And most of all, you are going to be powerful once you take this thing totally free. Go to nextlevelwholesaling.com. All right, so let's talk about how to execute like a maniac, right? I want you to picture the guy, maybe it's your girl, who, again, you're very reactive, right? You answer the phone when it rings, or you have the text and you look at it and you have this anxiety, right? Maybe it's an email that you feel like you are reacting to. And I don't know about you, but back in 2009, 2010, when it was just me, that's how I lived my days, right? I was a slave to my phone. I was hustling, and, whatever came, I reacted. Everything was important, right? And that's awesome in a way, because many people who don't work for themselves, right? They don't have this sense of urgency, right? But when you work for yourself and you have this crazy ADHD superpower, and yes, it is a superpower, right? Your focus is easily scattered, right? So an email, it comes to you, boom, you want to hit it. A text come, boom, you want to hit it. And one thing I noticed is my wife, who has the opposite personality of me, ironically, she's not the entrepreneurial type, but man, she seems to get so much done. And I noticed the way that she processed information versus me. And I thought, hey, what if we could actually combine, right, my ADHD superpower and her ability to prioritize and execute? So that's where we're going to dig in deep, because if you are that ADHD entrepreneur and you have that superpower, you've got to learn how to get this thing under control and stop running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Learn how to prioritize and execute, because if you do this, all right, your business is going to go through the roof, your lifestyle is going to thank you, and your bank account is going to explode. So I took a lot of notes here today. So if you're watching me on YouTube, I'm going to look down a little bit. If you're in the podcast, you won't even notice. Okay, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that discipline is everything when you are growing a business, okay? And I know that sounds like an oversimplification, but I'd rather it be easy than hard. And again, I'm gonna give you some very, very specific tools here today. Again, the phone rings, the email, the text, the paperwork that you've got to sign, right? Think about it. Every single day, you are reacting, right? And you're never getting those big, most important projects that are going to move the needle. If you're gonna grow, this has to stop. So how do you stop it? And how do you now start focusing on the most important things? All right, here we go. The first thing that you have to do is give yourself permission to take some time off and plan your year and your quarter. Okay. We actually plan 3 to 5 years out, but I'm going to break it down here really, really simple where you're going to have a time where you're going to say, okay, this is what I want for my business. This is my vision. This is this is how long I want to work. This is how much money I want to be making. And this is what my team looks like. And this is what we do. Now, most people, they never take the time to do that because they're quote unquote too busy. All right. That's like driving on a flat tire and saying that you don't have time to change it. All right. I'm going to repeat that. That's like driving on a flat tire and saying that you don't have time to stop to go and change it, right? Assuming that you're going to drive across the country, right? If you're going to drive another 100 feet, maybe not, okay? But if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably somewhat of a long-term thinker. You're trying to build something awesome, right? You can't drive on a flat tire because you don't have time to change it. So if I were you, I'd block at least one day for some kind of annual meeting for yourself. Now, if you've got a team, right? Maybe you've got a VA, bring that virtual assistant, or you got, an acquisition reps or a spouse who's involved in the business, have that. But even if it's yourself, you need to take one day where you're not taking phone calls, you're not taking emails, you're not taking texts, and you are focusing. Now, some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. I have deals in the works. This is a simple fix, all right? Plan your meeting 2 weeks in advance. And tell your title company, your escrow company, if you have a virtual assistant, tell them that you're not going to be answering the phone, and give yourself time to prepare this meeting so that people around you know that you are not going to be available on this day. Now, if it's just you, you could put a auto response on your voicemail, or you could put an auto response in your email, or you could leave a automatic message in your voicemail, but you got to lock yourself in a room or a hotel lobby someplace, wherever it takes, and plan a day for yourself. Now, I know some people who do this for 2 days. You can get it done in one, especially if you've got a small company and it's just you. Next thing I would do is go to someplace inspiring, all right? Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's the mountains, but I would get away from your normal routine. So if you're like me and you've got a bunch of kids running around the house making noise, that's probably not the best place. If you have an office and you've got a bunch of team members who are going to be bothering you, and they're going to be interrupted and you're going to be interrupted, it's not a good place. I would rent a conference room someplace, or again, if it's just you, maybe you can go to a hotel lobby, or maybe you can rent a cabin and focus this one day where you are not responding to anything. All right. So you got your 1 year. How much revenue do I want? What the business do I look like? What territories are we going to focus on? And what does this thing look like? What are the major things that I'd like to see accomplished at the end of the year? Now, here's the key point. Now that you know that, you want to break these down into quarterly size projects. Now, you've got a year, you got a lot of things on there, right? You want to do everything. And I get it. You're an entrepreneur and you want to take it on, but you can't do that, right? That's why you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. By the way, if you're listening to this, you're probably like, oh my gosh, Todd's in my head. I can tell you, I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs, and the ones who get this are the ones who go. I take all of my private clients through this exercise, and once we start doing this, man, after 6 months and a year, their businesses look completely different. All right. By the way, if you want to know more about working with me one-on-one, you can go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/coaching, nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/coaching. So now that we have this year plan, we break this down into quarterly goals. You're not going to be able to accomplish everything that you want to in the year that first quarter. Understand that. Now, that doesn't mean not ever. It just means not today, not this quarter. So depending on how big your team is, I would take on 2 or 3 major projects that you are going to focus on. Now, these are the most important. I'm going to repeat that. These are the these are the top 2 or 3 most important on your list. Remember, we're not going to put everything on the list, because if everything becomes urgent, nothing becomes urgent. If you try to do too many projects, you're not going to get enough projects done. Maybe nothing. Okay. I got a great book that you should read, by the way. It's The One Thing by Gary Keller. All right. If you chase 2 rabbits, you'll catch none. So you have your quarterly projects. You've decided that these are the top 2 or 3 things that you are going to need to move the needle. And you say not yet to everything else, right? You still got the list, get it out on paper, know that it's important, but not today, because these are the 2 most important things. Now, some people have a hard time letting go because they're going to say, well, all of these things are important. It's important to remember that if you focus on them all, none of them will get done. So it's kind of like, I know you want to get them all done, but it's just not possible. So if you focus on the 2 or 3, you could bang those out. The next quarter, you bang out the next 2 or 3, and the next quarter, you bang out the next 2 or 3. All right. So now that you have that, you want to write this down on your plan for the year and your plan for the quarter. Something that we use within our team is we have a Trello board. Okay. If you want to check out Trello, Trello. And on there, we have our quarterly priorities for each person. Now, again, if it's just you, that's okay. But we say, what is that quarterly priority? What does it look like? Who's responsible? And what is the due date? And then we write out that quarterly project in painful detail. Okay, so that way we could say this is done or not done. Now, the key thing is that you write it down in painful detail. Very, very, very detailed. We don't want half done. We don't want 75%. We want all done. Because many projects, if they're 90% done, they're not launched, right? They're not contributing to the business. For example, if you want to develop a new website and you're like, oh, I wrote all the content and, I have all the pages and, I know what it looks like and all I have to do is have the webmaster launch it. Guess what? That's incomplete. Unless that website is up and live and attracting motivated sellers, that thing is incomplete. So you want to have it written out completely. For example, if I was talking about a website, I would say launch all new website with fully functioning web forms, phone numbers, and published by, 12/31/2022, right? Whatever year it is, right? And I'd put that on there and I'd be very, very, very specific, okay? For example, if you're launching a new, let's say you want to go on TV and you're advertising your company on TV, I would say launch commercials on 3 different radio stations playing 10 times a day by 12/31/2022 or 12/31/2023. Get really, really, really specific. And again, with a due date and 1 person responsible for this. Okay. Now, it does not mean that other people on your team cannot help you, right? But whoever is responsible for that project has to be, the buck stops with them. Right? They can, again, get help from other people, but they have to own that project. If you have 2 people responsible for 1 project, that means nobody's responsible. And it's like, I thought you were going to do this. No, I thought you were going to do this. And that's where a lot, especially in partnerships, where people are just, spinning their wheels and nothing gets done. So how do we make sure this gets done? Well, now you need routine and discipline, right? You have this document. That's half the battle. We know where we're going and we know the most important things that we have to do for each quarter. Now we need routine. You see, people who are extremely ripped, right? They got that 6 or 8 pack and they've got that, crazy physique. They don't work out once during the year. They don't work out once a quarter. They work out every single day and they have a routine, right? Routines are different for different things, but you need a constant routine where you are course correcting. So in our business, what I'm going to recommend to you is have a weekly meeting at the same time with the same agenda. By the way, you want to check out a phenomenal book. It's called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. You also want to check out Traction by Gino Wickham. 2 books, phenomenal information. I like to really, really simplify this for my audience because we got a lot of solopreneurs who listen here. So now that you're going over this on this weekly meeting, what we have everybody do is we go over our scorecard and we'll talk about that on other days, but I'm going to talk about now these quarterly priorities. So if you do nothing else, you want to use this tool And whoever's responsible reads that quarterly priority and the whole thing. So they read it out loud, including that painful detail that I talked about. And they said, this is what I got done last week, and this is what I'm going to do this week. Now, why do we do this every single week? And why do we read it out loud? Because what we don't want to happen is for the quarter to pass and say, okay, I'm good, right? Not say that out loud. And at the end of the quarter and say, I didn't get it done. So we want to reconfirm it. We want to say it out loud. If there's any issues that it needs to be corrected, let's correct that. We say what got done last week and what's going to get done next week. We're focusing on our 2 or 3 top big priorities, and we're moving 1 inch every single week. Boom, or a foot, however long you want to work. Boom, 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 boom. And we're not moving backwards. We're focusing with laser-like precision. We're putting precision, We are putting on blinders so that all outside distractions are not going to take us away from our goal. I'm telling you, this stuff is powerful. You do this by week, quarter by quarter, year after year. These things are going to start to compound and your business is going to explode. You're going to be running around circles around your competition because they are going to be running around like a chicken with their head cut off. They're going to be completely unfocused, but you are disciplined. You're focused. You've got routine. You know where you're going and how you are going to get there. Man, I love this stuff. Mostly because I've dealt with the pain and I've seen the light, and it is much, much better on the light. All right. So during that time, by the way, when you're in your meetings, your quarterly meetings, your yearly meetings, your Monday morning meetings, you want to shut off that phone. You want to shut off the email. You want to shut off any method of communication that people have with you during that time. You want to give yourself permission to say no to almost everything so you can get the most important things done. This is really, really, really important, okay? Now, I understand that if you are running a business, that there are some quote unquote things that are urgent and need to be done now. And they're aside from these big projects. And so here is my recommendation on how to run your day, right? Like for example, if you've got a hot motivated seller lead and you don't have an acquisition specialist, I understand you're going to have to go out there, lock up that deal and get the contract. I understand that. Well, you have 2 choices. Do that for the rest of your life, or now make a shift and change a little bit of your behavior. So here is what I would do. I would, number 1, run my business like I normally would, but then I would block out an hour a day or an hour and a half a day for these special projects. Right. So for example, if you now need to hire a really good virtual assistant for your business and you're like, Todd, I don't have time, right? I don't have time to onboard them and research and train and do all that other stuff. Here's what I would do. I would block out 1 hour a day or 3 hours a week or 2 hours a week, whatever that is, and put that on my calendar and invest 10 hours over the next 10 weeks to find that one person who is going to help me. So for example, if it was hiring a virtual assistant and this was my project and it was part of that one quarterly thing that I was trying to get done, I'd put it on my calendar. Hey, I'm going to do this from 2 to 4 on Tuesday and Thursdays for the next 3 weeks. And then during that time, I'm going to shut out all distractions so that the rest of the week I can focus on doing deals and bringing in revenues, right? I understand that has to happen, but give yourself permission to focus on those big projects. You want to put them on your calendar. Maybe it's a new marketing campaign, right? You have to get those big priorities done. You need to put it on your calendar to make sure that happens. This is really a way that you are being proactive in your days and not reactive. I understand there are times where you need to be reactive, but if you put those most important things on your calendar and then give yourself permission to shut off to the outside world during those times and make it a priority, and then follow up every single Monday or whenever your weekly meeting is, you are going to win. Let me give you an example here. For example, if you decide that one of your big projects is to hire a virtual assistant to handle all the administrative work in your business, and you're like, Todd, I don't think I have time. Well, that 10-hour investment of bringing that person on and training them and onboarding them and investing in them, right? And they work 40 hours a week, will bring you over 2,000 hours a year in productive income producing activities for yourself. I'm going to repeat that. A 10-hour investment into a great virtual assistant, if this is one of your projects, right, to shut that off will bring you back 2,000 hours a year. Man, this is a phenomenal way to fix your tire and drive across the country instead of driving around or driving across the country on a flat tire. Let's say, there's a marketing campaign that you really want to implement and, you've been thinking about it and it's going to be successful, but you just can't pull the pieces together, right? Maybe you want to add mail, maybe you want to add cold calling, and you just haven't been able to get it done, right? Hey, this might take 10 or 12 hours, take 2 hours over the next 3 weeks. Those 6 hours might bring you an extra $250,000 in revenue this year. What about sales training, right? Maybe your people or you need more sales training. By the way, this is a key component. If you want to know more about actually the No Limits sales system, I highly recommend this and will always tell you to buy it, is nolimitsalessystem.com. Go check that out, nolimitsalessystem.com. But if you invest in yourself like that, you want to take time to listen to that. And so I would invest maybe 2 hours a week listening to that, shut off everything else, and get those super fast wheels on my car. Now, I don't know what your priorities are depending on where your business, that's going to be different for everything else. But number one, you've got to take the time to decide those things. Number two, you have to take time to be accountable to those things. And then three, you have to take time to actually do those things. Stephen Covey had a phenomenal analogy one time. And he says, if you had a big bucket and if you basically took a bunch of sand and you put it in a bucket, and then you took a bunch of pebbles and then you stuck a bunch of rocks in a bucket, right? It's much easier to put the big rocks in first. So for example, if you take these giant boulders and you put them in, and then all of a sudden you take smaller rocks, they'll go in and fit in between all the big ones. And then all of a sudden you take some pebbles, they'll go in there. And then you can take the sand and put it in there. And then eventually you can pour water on the top. But you would never be able to do that if you did it the other way around. If you took all the water or the sand and you poured in there first, you would never be able to get the rocks in this big container. Very, very powerful analogy for me. Here's my point. The discipline and routine will give you freedom. Okay, take some time for yourself, invest into what you want. Okay, keep yourself accountable and keep doing it week after week, quarter after quarter, and year after year. And I promise you, your business will explode. Remember to go to nextlevelwholesaling.com. Take that assessment. Remember, it's going to score you in those 4 areas. It's going to be abundantly clear on the next step you need to take in your real estate wholesaling business. Your business will thank you for it. Talk to you soon.